morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in God's green earth. My name is Walter Hidalgo, and I'm from New York in the United States of America. I'm grateful to be here, to be invited to share my story and some insight around the church and human rights. I could be summed up in just a couple of titles: father, educator, coach, artist, and world traveler. One of the ways I sort of show that is through the work that I did as part of my graduate and postgraduate studies, where I focused on the spirituality of hip hop. And I've had the honor and pleasure to do that all over the world by asking thousands of people, is hip hop spiritual? And it's by the Kairos moment, I would say, that it is this year, as I record this video for you all, it is hip hop's 50th year anniversary. 50 years our culture has helped us. And when people ask me, what is hip hop? It's higher infinite power healing our people. I believe that to my core because I've seen it all over the world. Just here in New York, we have the longest running open mic event called End of the Week. They use some of their funds to help a lot of youth organizations all over the planet. I think about the young people in Colombia and South America and how they use emceeing and dancing to recruit young people who would otherwise join narcos or gangs in the city. Or be it, hip hop groups that consist of both Palestinian and Jewish brothers and sisters, just as a way to kind of add peaceful resolution to an ongoing conflict. And I think that speaks to a lot of why I made the connection between hip hop and even the church. Because the church is beyond the four walls. That's the title of my book, Beyond the Four Walls, The Rise of Ministry and Spirituality of Hip Hop, because hip hop as a culture has shown me and millions all over the world that a church is one that goes out to the community, because the community is the church. And I think that's a great segue to get into this conversation around human rights, because human rights are the right to be human, right? And I believe that we're going through a huge shift in our world with the decline of young adults in 2012 attending church and faith in the United States. We were also seeing the rise of social media. In 2003, 2003 is when Facebook started, and from there was the snowball effect that eventually led us to 2012. The Mayas were not warning us, they were telling us spiritually that there's going to be a reawakening, not the end of the world. So in 2012, while young adults left the church, we saw the rise of the internet and social media, and that has been a huge vehicle that has been kind of propelling our young adults as someone who works with young people. And that's really, I think, is important when we talk about the ever-evolving church and what it means to include the rights of humans within the church. To not get too theological, that is my background. I'm a socio-theologian, but I feel that, many of us Christians believe that Jesus was both human and God, right? God, Emmanuel, God is with us, revealed himself to us also in the form of a human who had emotions, who had dreams and ideas. But we also see that at a macro level with God, the divine, who even throughout all throughout Old Testament and the New Testament showed us what it means to have human rights, the right to be human. We've seen it through the prophets, through the saints. Really, they are the best of the human experience. And the church is a great example of that. You know, I just got back from doing an immersion trip. So one of the many hats that I do is I work with the Marino Fathers and Brothers, which is a U.S. Catholic Foreign Missionary Society of America. And one of the things I do is I accompany groups to attend our immersion trips, where they get immersed into the, you know, contextual realities of the place, in this case Guatemala, its history, its politics, the influences of the church teaching, and different faiths, and also what kind of action came out of that. So immediately, just in Guatemala, I think of, you know, Bishop Girardi, whose testimony, which turned into a book, Nunca Más, really propelled the peace movement in Guatemala. So it was the church that was involved in many places throughout Guatemala where their human rights were being violated. The same way we see in our neighboring country of El Salvador with Bishop Oscar Romero, who also was a beacon of hope and light, who spoke up against the injustices that were happening to our brothers and sisters in El Salvador. It's always been the church that has served as a breeding ground for justice, right? We see that in the civil rights movement, and that was an ecumenical movement. We've seen it all throughout our world, where little lights, sparks of light, have created ripples effect that have changed the social spiritual trajectory of our world. You know, we are becoming awakened. Our young people and our young adults, this generation is the most intelligent generation in the history of humanity. I really want that to sink in. With the technology that they have at the palm of their hands, with the world opening up and the accessibility of this much information, it's going to change the world. And the church has to change also, because it's necessary, it's needed, it's part of how we will sustain ourselves as a people of faith, by utilizing the tools that are around us, right? As the saying goes, you know, the times have changed, but the message still the same. We know God is the example given to us in many different expressions and cultures all over the world, be it Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Jainism, whatever. It's what one priest once told me, you know, the way to God has, as this massive ocean, has many rivers that lead to it. I do believe that hip hop is one of those rivers. My faith as a Catholic, growing up Catholic, I still believe in the church. But we need to really change it up. One of the ways you can do that is support me by purchasing my book, Beyond the Four Walls, The Rise in Ministry and Spirituality of Hip Hop. I use a lot of those funds to help youth organizations all across the country and the world, you know, to listen to our young people, you know, involve them, stop criticizing people. We need a church that's more welcoming, right? Forget about this whole idea that you're supposed to look, act a certain way. When we know Pentecost taught us very well that we all come in different flavors, different sounds, voices, social historical realities. This is the way I believe we can change our world, right? Young person, learn from the wisdom of our elders. But elders, learn from the liberational spirit and new ideas of the young person. Thank you. Peace.